Chapter 43. Just as the summit was winding down and I figured we were finally in the clear. Wham! The main doors flew open with all the subtlety of an exploding magic mine. I heard all that. Tempest shall fall to ruin. ... Oh great. In came this tiny winged girl, flailing dramatically midair, and while it was hard to believe from appearances alone, she was actually Rimuru of the Labyrinth, one of the 10 great demon lords. I blinked. Not because I was surprised, honestly, this sort of thing happens often enough that I should probably start keeping a bingo card, but more because I was trying to decide what face to make. Should I go with the classic, "Wow, what was that?" reaction, or just sigh and brace myself? I didn't get to choose. Rimuru was already zipping straight toward me like a gnat on a mission. Behind her, Beretta, calm and composed, as always, was quietly closing the door with a "here we go again" expression. That poor guy. If there was a prize for patience, he'd win it hands down. Anyone forced to babysit Rimuru all day would probably reach enlightenment just to cope. Meanwhile, Diablo, who'd been standing behind me like the perfect butler this whole time, stepped forward. His gaze sharpened. With a single motion, he intercepted Rimuru mid-flight, plucking her out of the air like she was a particularly noisy bug. "Wah, let me go. I'm a demon lord, you know." Yeah, we all knew. No one was impressed. Hey, she shouted, still flailing around like a wind-up toy. "What are you doing to me?" Honestly, I kind of love her for this. She didn't act like a demon lord at all, not even close, and somehow, that just made her weirdly adorable. "Lady Rimuru," Diablo said, carrying her over, "I have captured an intruder." She raved about this town falling to ruin. How should we address this insolence? Rimuru was still flapping her tiny wings frantically, trying and failing to slip from Diablo's fingers. "Gah, I'm using my full magic force and I still can't escape. This can't be any kind of regular bodyguard. Who even are you? What did I do to you?" She was making a scene. As always. I glanced at Diablo, who was holding her like a fragile figurine, then back at Rimuru. Yeah, no offense, but there was just no way she was escaping him. The difference in power was a whole other dimension. And this was supposed to be a demon lord. See, this is why I sometimes question what the title even means anymore. Fuse leaned toward me, brow slightly furrowed. "Do you know this, fairy, Lady Rimuru?" "Oh, right, we were still in the middle of a summit. You'd think the sudden door slam and dragonfly interception combo would be enough of a clue to pause, but not for Rimuru. She had the social awareness of a rock. "Yeah, I do," I said with a sigh. "That's Rimuru. And, well, she might not look it, but I guess she's a demon lord, too." "Hey," she snapped. "What do you mean I don't look it? I'll have you know I'm the strongest of all 10 demon lords." She puffed her cheeks and flashed me a smug, triumphant grin while still dangling in midair like a caught firefly. The room fell into a confused silence. You could hear the disbelief radiating off the guests. "Huh, a demon lord," someone muttered from the Thalian side. "Wait, someone like that," another said, clearly struggling to make the mental leap. Even Gazel's eyebrows twitched slightly. I was kind of used to this by now, but for everyone else in the room, yeah, this summit just went completely off script. "What? Like, what? Come on, what's your problem? You're supposed to act more surprised. I'm kind of a demon lord, guys. Rimuru of the Labyrinth, in the flesh, all right. Why is everyone acting so uninterested? I mean, demon lord or not, she was still caught between Diablo's fingers like a particularly loud fairy caught mid-flight. Honestly, with how small she was, she looked more like a wayward mascot than anything else. Not that I'd say that out loud. I'm not that mean. Well, as a demon lord herself, it's only natural Lady Rimuru would be acquainted with other demon lords, I suppose. If anything, the Storm Dragon's revival was such a shock, nothing surprising anymore. That pretty much summed up the mood in the hall. Nods all around, calm expressions. Not one person screamed or ran for the doors, which probably made this Rimuru's worst nightmare. The Storm Dragon. Veldora's been revived. You guys are being tricked. I beat Veldora into the ground with a single punch, I'll have you know. That guy's all roar and no bite. His air is over. If you're looking for someone to fear, start with me. Cue the smuggest grin I've ever seen on something with wings the size of rice crackers. Diablo, hand her over, I muttered, rubbing my temple. "With pleasure, Lady Rimuru." He bowed gracefully and dropped Rimuru into my arms like she was a feather. She immediately squirmed. Oh oi, let me go, I'm not done talking. Yeah, I said with a sigh, walking toward the corner of the meeting room. There, sprawled out like he owned the place, was Veldora lounging comfortably on the sofa with one leg propped up, a manga volume open in front of him, and a chilled fruit tea on the side table. Veldora, I called, you mind entertaining this girl for a bit? She's a demon lord too kind of and I figured you two might hit it off. He didn't even glance up. I am currently unraveling the mystery of Volume 13's plot twist. A most delicate moment, Rimuru. There was a short pause. Then, from behind me, CL's voice rang out calm, cold, and merciless. The twist where the protagonist betrays the party after pretending to be their ally all along. Thud. The book slipped from Veldora's hands. Wah. No, Seal, Veldora cried, staggering as if struck by a physical blow. Why would you say that? Seal remained perfectly composed, without another word. Across the room, by the doorway, Ren stood still like a statue ever the flawless maid. But as Veldora slumped dramatically on the sofa, devastated, her expression shifted slightly. Just a flicker, her gaze lowered, and for the briefest moment, she exhaled. Spoiling someone at a moment like that, is truly heartless. Her tone was flat, almost reverent, as if mourning a tragedy. It wasn't loud enough for anyone to comment on but I heard it. I felt it too. I winced a little, heart aching at the sight of Veldora's shattered spirit. The poor guy looked genuinely broken, staring blankly at the wall. Sorry, Veldora, I'll make it up to you later, I mumbled. But I couldn't afford to stop right now. We were in the middle of something too important. Ramirez finally stopped struggling long enough to look up at who I was talking to. The moment she spotted him, her entire body locked up. Her face drained of color. Vive, Veldora, she promptly passed out. Thunk. I walked over and handed off the now unconscious Ramirez, limp in my arms. She's another demon lord, I told him softly. Maybe she'll listen to you if she wakes up. Veldora didn't respond, he just gave a long, wounded sigh and gathered the tiny fairy into his arms, looking 10 years older somehow. I turned back to the center of the room, heart heavy, but keeping it hidden behind a calm face. There was a summit to finish. So, wrapping up, I went over everything we had to do. After all the discussions were finally over. By the way, Xian, how are those three dealing with your questioning? Did they give us anything useful? I had honestly forgotten about that. It didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I'd left our prisoners in Xian's care this whole time. Of course they did, Lady Rimuru. Oof, somebody was sounding a little too confident. That was never a good sign. I glanced toward Yom and Majoran, who had been tasked with observing the questioning. They exchanged looks and then quickly turned their eyes away from me. Yom began, scratching his head. Yeah, questioning, sure. They talked a lot, definitely. That they did, Majoran added. But, calling that an interrogation might be a bit generous. I think I watched something that technically qualifies as psychological warfare. Standing near the door with her hands neatly folded in front of her, Ren nodded once. The results were satisfactory, she said coolly. There wasn't a hint of guilt or humor in her tone, only cold professionalism, as if she were commenting on the weather. Xian grinned. See, I told you they were helpful. CL's voice echoed gently in my mind, calm and unhurried. Open double angle bracket. The interrogation proceeded as expected, Master. You entrusted them to capable hands. Shall I replay the details? Close double angle bracket. Go ahead. Open double angle bracket. Understood. Close double angle bracket. The memory played clearly in my head, like a silent projection only I could see. The prisoners Edmaris, Rahiam, and the Otherworlders sat chained in enchanted restraints, barely able to lift their heads. The silence was broken only by the crackle of torches on the wall. Ren stood before them, no fanfare, no smile, just cold fury simmering beneath her usually composed face. You made my lady kill. Her voice was calm but only on the surface. Each word struck like steel. She may not say it aloud, but I've seen it. The weight she hides. The pain she bears. She slowly removed her gloves and set them aside. My lady's hands were once soft, gentle. She was someone who never wanted to hurt anyone. She drew a long, thin blade. Because of you, they're stained red. Without another word, she began. Screams echoed. She worked with terrifying precision, pulling nails, peeling skin, severing fingers, and healing them again with a potion. Again, and again. Speak. It wasn't a question. Rahiam tried to lie. Ren carved the truth out of his body. The otherworlder cried for mercy. Ren offered none. They spoke. Eventually, everything. Ren stepped back. I believe Xian wishes to continue, she said plainly. Then Xian stepped forward. Gone was the cheerful smile. Her eyes were sharp, cold. Quote. You're the reason our beloved Lady Rimuru had to slaughter thousands, she muttered. You better pray she never blames you. Because I never forgive. She activated Master Chef. With a gleam of light, the prisoners' bodies warped, limbs twisted, bones bent, joints cracked into new angles. It was no longer pain they screamed from. It was existential terror. Even full potions couldn't repair the damage now. After a brief moment of inspection, Ren clapped her hands once. She returned with 3 black velvet-lined wooden boxes, each sized exactly to accommodate one altered body. With disturbing grace, she folded each prisoner into their own box, contorted, limp, and silent. Ribbons were tied black, red, and silver. Finally, she held one up and whispered as she secured the final bow. A perfect gift for the Pharmas government. For forcing my lady to abandon the peace she so dearly wished for. She smiled softly. It's the least we could do. I blinked. Ciel's report had faded, but the images were still fresh in my mind. The dark chamber, the screams, the twisted shapes that used to be men. Ren's voice echoed in my memory, cold, cutting, furious. My lady's hands were once soft, gentle. She was someone who never wanted to hurt anyone. Because of you, they're stained red. My hands. A chill passed through me. I had ordered their capture. I had told Xian and the others to make them talk. I didn't say how, but even so, I didn't think I had heard anything that disturbing in a long, long time. And they had done it all for me. Xian never once hesitated to call me Lady Rimuru. She'd go to the ends of the earth for me. But after what she did down there, I wasn't sure if I should feel thankful or terrified. Ren, especially, she's always quiet, unshakable, refined, but beneath that perfect maid facade was something dark. A storm held at bay for my sake. She didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She simply carried out her work, with precision, grace, and terrifying intent. All because they had made me kill. Because they'd forced my hand when I tried to offer mercy. They never said it to my face. But I could feel it in every blade, every scream, every flick of the ribbon on those disturbingly perfect gift-wrapped boxes. You made our gentle, kind lady take lives with her own hands. And for that, we will make you suffer. And I couldn't stop them, not because I agreed, but because, deep down, I understood. My fingers curled into my palm beneath the table, nails digging lightly into skin. They looked clean now, soft, refined, like they belonged to someone who had never lifted a blade. But I knew better. These were the same hands that gave the order. The same ones that held my people's hopes. And spilled blood to protect them. Because I'm no longer human. I had already accepted that. I let go of my old self, that ordinary man from Japan. A place where the worst conflict was over a missed train. A world where taking another life was unthinkable. But that part of me still lingers. Buried beneath the titles, the strength, the skills. And that part of me still feels it. The ache, the weight. I didn't cry, I didn't flinch, but in that quiet space behind my smile, something hurt. Because taking a life, even for justice, even for peace, isn't something you just forget. It stays with you, like a stain no amount of power can wash away. Are you all right, my lady? Ren's voice reached me gently. I didn't answer. I couldn't, but I met her gaze. And I saw it there. Understanding. She knew. She always knew. Ren didn't question me. She never would. But she saw the things I didn't say. She always did. She had watched everything from the shadows, watched me go from a kind-hearted leader to someone who had to make choices like this. And she accepted it all, even if it hurt her to see me like this. Just behind me stood Ciel. Silent, poised as ever. Her masked face gave away nothing, but I felt her presence resonate in perfect sync with mine. A subtle hum of reassurance. Steady, unwavering. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. I knew they both understood. They had carried out my will without hesitation. But they also knew I hadn't walked away from it unscathed. Even after I cast aside my humanity. Some pieces still clung to me. And maybe they always would. No matter how heavy the burden, I had to carry it. Because I am ruler, it's my responsibility to protect my people. And that I will do. No matter what I have to become. No matter what I must do. If I have to stain my hands. If I have to bury my past as a human. Then so be it. This is the path I chose. For their future I'll carry it all. I took a quiet breath and lifted my head, letting the moment pass. There was still work to do. Either way, we had 3 prisoners in custody, and following Xian and Ren's tour to questioning, they seemed fairly willing to talk. First off, Xian began, voice full of confidence despite everything that happened. Ed Noel. Ed, quote. King Ed Maris, whispered Shuna gently into her ear. Thanks for that, but, really, Xian, you couldn't even come up with the king's name. I know it's kind of a weird one. King Ed Maris had apparently made contact with a merchant, one who brought him silken fabrics from our nation and whetted his appetite for conquest. The king also feared that trade would drift over to our nation in the future, which also led to those moves on his part. Xian's rundown continued, calm and clinical. The content didn't really surprise me. The only thing that did was a growing suspicion, was that merchant truly acting on their own? Or had they been sent to stir the pot? But, what about the church? I had to ask. It was the piece I was dreading most, but also the most important one. Ah, yes, he revealed who was pushing him behind the scenes. The name was. Xian paused, frowning slightly. It's a long one, Xian. You think you got that one remembered at all? Quote. The core of it all was Cardinal Nicolaus Speltus, Ren said, stepping in calmly after Xian shot her a pleading look. Xian was great at extracting information from people, but anything else? Forget it. She had some kind of mental block keeping her from remembering proper names. Better give her some other assignment next time. Good thing Ren was around. I couldn't really expect much in the critical analysis department from Yom, either, so she no doubt provided some handy backup. According to her, Nicolaus stated that they planned to take us all down as a nation clearly against the will of their god. Plan to, anyway, I see, Fuse muttered. So Archbishop Rahiam wanted all the glory of defeating a godless enemy, so he could earn extra clout with the central authorities. Everyone seemed to agree with this. Quote. Such fragile faith, Ren murmured, voice quiet but cold. If a god demands blind slaughter, then perhaps the only heresy is obedience. The room chilled for a beat just slightly until she stepped back into silence, eyes lowered, hands folded neatly. It was subtle, as always. But I caught the meaning behind her words. Even now, she was angry not just for me, but for what I had to do. Quote. Either way, we still have some wiggle room, I said, moving things along. The Western Holy Church hasn't made a definitive decision yet. Perhaps there's a way to negotiate ourselves out of being designated hostile. In that case, Fuse said, straightening his posture, let me handle that. After Fuse laid out his plans, both King Gazel and Archduke Erald also offered their assistance in smoothing things over with the church. With support from the might of Thalion and Dworgen, it felt like we might actually pull this off. I was honestly grateful. Bloomond had already picked me. I didn't see any reason not to take the hint. Living together in harmony was right at the crux of my ideal. Besides, Fuse, when you return home, I want you to tell the king that I have a favor to ask. A favor, not another painful one, I trust. Kinda rude, wouldn't you say? It'll take a while to explain, and I'll probably fail to get the point across to you, so I'll visit later to go over it in detail with him. Ho, and I'm the rude one? You make me sound like some kind of dullard. No, I didn't mean it like that. I just mean, do you know much of anything about economics, Fuse? All right, I will give word to the king and arrange a time. Great, I nodded, smiling a little. Fuse could grumble all he wanted, he always came through in the end. Bloomond really had chosen me. And now, I was choosing them back. Bloomond's role here would be to keep statistics on the amount of trade in all the main manufactured goods of the region. I'd have them examine the products imported and exported from each nation, then make sure that the necessary items were shipped to the necessary place. To put it another way, I would have Bloomond become the first large-scale trading company in the world. Get it right, and there'd be nothing small about this nation any longer. They'd be a financial superpower, wielding influence beyond comprehension. We kept the meeting going for a while after that. Everyone had their say, and eventually the talk shifted to how we'd go about making Yom the new king. I mean, sure, I could have stepped in and handled the whole thing myself, but honestly, it just felt like too much of a hassle. All that political back and forth, smoothing out the fine print, making sure everyone's egos were stroked the right way. Yeah, no thanks. So I quietly left it all to Diablo. He accepted the task with his usual grace, but I could tell. The way his shoulders drooped ever so slightly, the brief pause before he bowed, yeah, he wasn't thrilled about it. Not because of the work itself, but because it meant leaving my side for a while. Sorry, Diablo, I'll make it up to you later. Maybe. To finish things off, I asked if anyone else had something to say. A hand shot up. It was Errol, looking at me with a mix of composure and something almost like excitement. Yes, I prompted. He gave a slight nod, clearly waiting for this moment. Our nation and yours are separated by some of the most treacherous terrain on the continent, dense forests, steep mountains, and all the rest. If we could establish a direct route through that region, it would cut travel time significantly. A highway, in particular, would make the journey far more practical. He glanced my way, gauging my reaction. Ah, I see, so that's what this is about. If we were going to formalize relations with Thalian, then yeah, we'd obviously want a proper land route between us. A highway would make trade easier, more efficient and more profitable on both sides. Honestly, that had been part of my plan from the beginning. Still, the kind of project he was suggesting wasn't small. We'd be talking tree clearing, tunneling, and paving on a massive scale. Not cheap, even for a nation like Thalian. And judging by that innocent little look he was giving me, Errol had probably done his math ahead of time and was now politely trying to slide the bill onto my desk. Smooth move, Archduke. I understand your suggestion, Duke Errol, I said, folding my hands with a composed smile. We're willing to accept your request for a highway. Errol looked pleased, but I wasn't finished yet. However, I continued, my tone light, I'd like Tempest to handle all the highway's security, maintenance, and associated infrastructure, lodging, checkpoints, and rest stops. In exchange, we'll impose a small transport tax. Just enough to cover operating costs, and a little extra for the trouble. Errol blinked, then smiled again and nodded. Quote, that sounds perfectly reasonable, Lady Rimuru. We accept your terms. Huh, really, you're just going to agree to that? You're an elf, a high noble of Thalian, and you didn't even pause to consider the implications. I mean, sure, right now, it sounds like a fair deal. We handle the hard work, and you pay the toll. But once things settle down, that route's going to become the economic artery of this whole region. The highway will connect Thalian, the Dwarven Kingdom, and eventually the Western nations once I establish ties through the Council. And if I manage to reach the Eastern Empire too, that's a full-blown continental network. Tempest is right in the middle. Once the wars die down and trade explodes, that, modest, tax will start pouring in from every direction: caravans, merchants, supply routes. I don't have a human lifespan to worry about. I can afford to be patient. 5, 10, 20 years from now, it'll start paying back, the investment, and after that, it's all profit. Across the room, I caught a flicker of movement. Ren's lips curled into a faint, pleased smile. Just for a second, only I noticed. She understood what I was planning. Then she was back to her usual perfect maid expression, like nothing happened. And Errol didn't notice any of it. That's kind of worrying, honestly. For a noble of a country like Thalian, he should be thinking far, far ahead. If he can't see through this, what does that say about their strategic foresight? Just as I was wondering whether I should tone things down, Errol finally added. Quote, However, I would like to retain the right to renegotiate that tax every few years. Now that was more like it. Very reasonable, I replied with a smile. Let's go with that. That's it. Fuse seemed flabbergasted, but I let it slide. In diplomacy, the power to make a decision trumps all else. With our talks between national leaders complete, it was finally time to shift gears to focus on the real reason we'd gathered in the first place, our strategy conference to deal with Clayman. I gave the order to reset the meeting hall and prepare for the next phase of discussion. Everyone began moving in earnest, but as I stood and stretched a little, a small, nagging thought started to crawl up the back of my mind. There was something I'd forgotten. Something noisy, small, very opinionated. Oh, right, Ramirez. That little pixie had flown in like a storm, caused a ruckus, and then promptly fainted. Worried, I excused myself and made my way toward the side of the hall where Veldora had been quietly lounging. I half expected to find Ramirez still passed out or sulking, maybe demanding attention in that overly dramatic way of hers. What I found instead, quote, no way. Ramirez was completely absorbed in a stack of manga, practically drooling over the page in front of her, her wings fluttering lazily as she laid on her stomach like a child at a sleepover. I blinked. Hey, what are you doing? She didn't even glance at me. Shut up a sec, I'm just getting to the good part. My eye twitched. Seriously, what was this? You barge in like the world's about to end, pass out in front of a true dragon, and now you're just reading manga. What even happened to all that? Tempest shall fall to ruin. Drama from earlier. I stood there with my arms crossed, staring at her back for a moment. What was she even here for again? Whatever it was, clearly she had forgotten too. I turned toward Beretta, who bowed gracefully. Congratulations on your evolution to Demon Lord, she said in her usual calm tone. Allow me to thank you, Grand Master. Because of you, I've evolved from an arch golem into a chaos golem. Chaos golem, huh? Her aura had definitely changed. There was a balance in her now, a strange harmony of divine and demonic energy. That's due to the unique skill Reverser, Master. It allows for coexistence of opposing elements, in Beretta's case, demonic and holy. I nodded slightly. That made sense. I'd already had some experience with this sort of thing. The unique skill Reverser is already integrated into the ultimate skill Uriel, Lord of Vows. Its effect can be recreated by applying control laws to metallic elements. Based on its logic, your own dual nature can now be controlled at will. I figured that was coming. By sealing your Demon Lord seed and unsealing the hero seed currently bound by infinite imprisonment, you will be able to assume a hero form. You're saying I can switch between them? Correct, Master. You are already an awakened Demon Lord. Your hero form, however, remains unawakened and therefore significantly weaker. Also, I've discovered a method to evolve your hero seed. She spoke gently, but I could hear the quiet implication, if you choose to walk that path. I didn't reply out loud. Just stood there for a moment, staring at Beretta while my thoughts swirled. Two paths. One form of power already realized and another still waiting. Just knowing the option existed felt heavier than I thought it would. But it was comforting too. Thanks, Seal, I murmured. Always, Master. Beretta looked up, her new form emanating calm, centered strength. All of this is thanks to you, Grand Master. Yeah, I replied with a light smile. I'm glad you're doing well. By the way, what are you guys here for? I glanced toward Ramirez, still completely absorbed in her manga. Beretta looked flustered for a moment before briskly stepping over to her. Lady Ramirez, now is not the time for this. We must inform Lady Rimuru of the news. Shut up, I'm really busy right now. Ramirez waved her hand without even glancing up. Fate has brought me and this wonderful thing called manga together. Oh, which suitor will she choose in the end? You couldn't argue with that logic. She was so earnest about it, too. Poor Beretta, it must go through this every day. Then, Seal stepped forward from behind me. Masked as always, elegant and composed, she tilted her head ever so slightly and spoke in a calm, detached tone devoid of warmth, but razor sharp. That series, I've read it. She chooses Claude in the end. Ramirez froze. The air shifted. Wah, she chooses Claude, Seal repeated, flatly. There was no gentleness, just a fact, dropped like a blade. Ramirez went stiff like her wings had short-circuited. The manga slipped from her hands. Ren, still standing by the door, lifted a gloved hand to her mouth in wordless shock. She didn't say a thing but her wide eyes said plenty. The weight of that spoiler had hit her, too. Ramirez slumped over, small and quiet for once. The fairy of the labyrinth, undone by a single sentence. Before Ramirez could recover, Ciel's quiet voice cut in again, sharp and utterly calm. If you don't get to the point in the next 10 seconds, I'll spoil the part where someone sacrificed themselves for their loved one, you know. The scene right before the final arc. Ramirez jolted midair like she'd been electrocuted. Why you wouldn't? That's cruel even by monster standards. Ciel simply turned her masked face slightly in her direction. No warmth, no bluff, just a subtle tilt of her head. One could almost feel the unspoken countdown. The threat worked instantly. Right, Ramirez yelped, snapping into a salute so fast it made her wings flutter out of sync. Roger that, I'll get serious now. She zipped into the air with newfound urgency, the fear of spoilers outweighing any pride she had as a demon lord. Honestly, it was probably the most effective form of coercion I'd seen used on her. The rest of the hall had fallen silent again. The various national representatives, nobles, and commanders who had been chatting casually until now turned to watch Ramirez with wide eyes. Most of them probably didn't know what just happened. From her spot by the door, Ren gave Seal a side terrified glance, no words again, just a brief pause before she composed herself and resumed standing at attention. Ramirez, now realizing she had an audience, puffed out her non-existent chest and folded her arms. I'll say it one more time. Tempest shall fall to ruin. What did you say? I replied, trying my best to sound shocked, but really, I wasn't feeling it. I was just following the script at this point. She took the bait immediately. HMPH. You know, Ramirez said, with an insufferably smug tone and hands on her non-existent hips, that isn't something I want to happen, of course. So I came all the way over here to tell you. You better thank me. She tilted her head up like I was supposed to shower her with praise. I didn't. Giving her too much attention would just encourage her. I stayed silent, and hoped she'd cut to the chase soon. So, I asked as casually as I could, why are we falling to ruin, exactly? Ramirez crossed her arms with a dramatic HMMPH, then paused as her expression darkened. She glanced around the hall, her eyes sweeping over the seated leaders and diplomats. Her tone dropped a bit. Well, before I tell you. Her wings stopped fluttering for a moment. She was sizing up the room, taking this just a bit more seriously than usual. For once. I suppose this has a lot to do with you humans, too. All right, listen up, all of you. She spun in the air and pointed a finger directly at the gathered representatives, her voice gaining just enough weight to make everyone sit up straighter. Clayman's just proposed that we launch a Walpurgis Council. I blinked. A Walpurgis what? A Walpurgis Council, she repeated proudly. A special meeting of all the demon lords. Gasps erupted across the room. I think I have read about this, Errol said slowly, raising his head in thought. Once, all the demon lords came together to wage an epic battle, one that the Western Holy Church named Walpurgis, or the Feast of Demons. A tense silence followed. The name alone carried weight. So if the demon lords were gathering again, did it mean a war between them? Or were they teaming up to strike something else? I didn't like either option. I leaned forward slightly in my seat. So are the demon lords about to declare war on something? No, I'm a busy woman. I don't have time for wars and other annoying stuff like that. Ramirez declared, arms crossed as she hovered indignantly in the air. Honestly, she didn't look that busy. But I wasn't about to say it out loud. She was technically a demon lord, after all, one that had apparently been around for a long time. Maybe she really did have first-hand memories of those ancient conferences from centuries past. I wouldn't put it past her. Errol nodded gravely, taking her words seriously. I believe the demon lord Ramirez is telling the truth. The war in the records I read was officially called the Tema War, the war between heaven and demon. It was fought by multiple factions, all vying for supremacy. A coalition of demon lords were involved, and it brought enormous destruction across multiple regions. Of course, he trailed off, letting the weight of history settle into the room. Of course, he continued, this was long before the current demon lord system took shape. If a Walpurgis Council is being held now, then something major is brewing. Especially if Clayman is behind it. TCH, I muttered under my breath. Clayman again. That manipulative bastard just couldn't sit still. Ramirez twirled in place midair and pointed at me. That's why I rushed over here. To warn you. Because you are probably the one Clayman's trying to paint as a threat. I bet he's going to use the council to have all the other demon lords gang up on you. A chill ran down my spine. That actually made perfect sense. Ren's eyes narrowed subtly, but she didn't move. Seal remained composed beside me, though I noticed the faint shift in her stance, her body language alert, assessing. She was ready for anything. Then I guess I'll have to crash this little party, I said with a sigh. If Clayman's calling a council, and dragging my name into it, I'll go. I'm not letting him run his mouth unchallenged. Ramirez blinked. Huh, you mean you're gonna attend Walpurgis? Well, yeah, why wouldn't I? Her tiny mouth opened and closed like a fish. Why, you're not scared? Of all the demon lords? I smiled faintly. I've got some pretty scary people on my side, too. Ramirez blinked a few times, then slowly floated back down to eye level, her expression thoughtful for once. I think it's probably okay, she muttered, arms folded. But you can only have 2 attendants along with you. 2 attendants? I tilted my head. That's surprisingly formal. It's always been like that, she said with a proud puff of her chest. The rules for Walpurgis were made a long time ago, so no armies, no ambushes, and no big entourages. Just you and 2 people. That's it. So she was serious about this. 2 attendants, huh, well, I had way too many competent people for that to be an easy choice. I guess I'll have to give this some thought, I said. Can't just take anybody with me. It's not exactly a tea party. Ramirez nodded gravely, which looked a bit odd on her tiny body. We continued the discussion for a while after that, clarifying some details, throwing around a few theories, and making sure everyone understood what was at stake. Ramirez, for once, managed to stay on topic, mostly. Veldora, on the other hand, had long since gone back to his manga, sipping tea and acting like none of this involved him. Once we'd gone over everything we could for now, I stood up from my seat and faced the rest of the leaders. I'll keep investigating on my end, I told them. If I find anything new, anything that could affect us all, I promise I'll inform you immediately. They all nodded, accepting the terms without hesitation. It was a subtle show of trust, one I didn't take lightly. With that, the meeting wrapped up. One by one, the attendees offered polite farewells, then departed the hall in orderly fashion. Some gave me a final glance, curious, respectful, or just thoughtful, before disappearing into the corridors beyond. The summit had come to a close. And somehow, I had a feeling things were only just getting started. To be continued.